Yeah.
So everybody, Lady B from NYC here, back in full swing with none other than Barry Privett from Carbon Leaf. Oh my goodness. It's such a pleasure to have you on here. And may I tell you, you're actually my first interview in quite a long time for anyone that is like really high up there in mainstream bands. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course, are you kidding? To tell you the truth, I actually wouldn't have even known who you guys were if it wasn't from my daughter loving the movie Curious George 2, Follow That Monkey.
Okay. It's
She she must have watched that thing like oh my god. She had a phase where it's like that's the only movie she would watch day after day after day. She gravitated towards the music, and that's how I knew she was definitely mine.
wow.
And you guys just I absolutely loved every song in that soundtrack. And after that I pretty much became addicted to what else you guys have made.
All the other stuff.
Yeah, no, and listen, better late than never.
Curious George was the gateway drug, huh?
Pretty much, but you know what? I feel that people tend to find and stumble upon good music in times where it's like you least expect it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And if you had I guess, how old was she when she was watching that? Five or?
Oh my God, she was I think around 4 or 5. I
Yeah.
think she was around that age. And then even when my niece was born, she would show her the movie and they would just watch it on Netflix together, and it was one of those bonding things that her and my niece had. And my daughter's actually going to be coming with me on
I was gonna
Friday.
ask her, I mean, she's got to be, how old is she now?
She's actually going to be 16 next year.
Oh, that's great.
And so when I mentioned to her that you guys were going to be coming to New York City, she had to video chat me while I was at work. And she actually said, and I quote, "It is detrimental to my life that we go to this."
Aw.
So, yeah, she's definitely looking forward to it. And she actually wants me to make her a black bleached shirt that says "Follow That Monkey" on it.
That's the tagline. Curious
Pretty
George.
much. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
do have I do have some questions for you, of course. This latest album, I've already listened to all of it. I absolutely love it. I would have
not
to say
Curious George.
no, 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 no. Time is the Playground,
That's right.
and I'm loving every single track that I've come across in there. California Gold, I have to say, is probably my favorite one out of all the ones there. I mean, I love every bit of it, but that one for some reason just struck a chord with me. What was the inspiration behind creating this latest album?
Well, it, it's an interesting project for us. We announced it at kind of when the pandemic started kind of taking root. We didn't think it was going to stick around that long, so we got off of
Mm-hmm.
tour. The last few shows of our tour got shut down because of the pandemic, and then we went back. You know, everybody went off and quarantined, and I was just like, well, let's launch a project. And so I had been thinking about doing this, and it seemed like a perfect opportunity to take some of the songs that have been kind of abandoned um, in
Oh,
our library of demos. We have a lot of demos that we've recorded over the years. They could be anything from just a guitar riff to a bass line or a bass and drum groove in the studio, or a sound check,
mhm.
something that we came up with a sound check, or or something that we just worked on as a whole group, that still we're awaiting lyrics.
Mm.
So over the years, I've just amassed all of this stuff. We have a lot more material than I have time to write the lyrics and vocal parts and ideas for. So I and over the years, there's ones that I love,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and then I would visit from time to time, but I couldn't, for one reason or another, I couldn't like make it all work. I couldn't find the theme or the hook or the vocal melody, or just couldn't get I just couldn't get out of couldn't get into the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so usually I will just put it away and either forget about it, or something will pop in my head and I'll go back to it. So there was a handful of those that I was eager to get back to, because they were all kind of speaking to me for some reason, and so that kind of formed the basis of what would become Time Is the Playground, and then we added some new material as well. So there's span of material that covers a good chunk of our career. Like maybe it could go back as far
Mm-hmm.
as 18 years, um, and I thought that was uh, an interesting concept. And I started thinking about the longevity of the band, and as you age, you start thinking about where you are in your life and what's behind you and what's in front of you, and how much your perspective changes
Yeah.
as an from an artist standpoint, where you are on that timeline. And I started thinking about this timeline that we're on, a very definitive, linear thing, and
Mm-hmm.
yet everything around us seems to kind of travel in these circular cycles. Our
Yeah.
our years, our days, our seasons, our traditions. They all kind of just eddy. They just kind of are constantly eddying. And I just thought it was an interesting kind of contrast. And so all these songs thematically all kind of tie back to kind of time and place, and just kind of where we are, where I am, and went from
Yeah.
there. So
Well, that's always. I mean, it's amazing what I guess you can find. What one of my musician friends actually said. It's amazing what you can find in your musical attic or musical basement, because a lot of times that's what he would consider, songs that he would start and then he would just get stuck and not know what to do with it later. But then something will wind up happening, and then it's like, oh, that can work for this.
yeah, and it's good not to try to force something through, and but it's frustrating when you really like something. It's like I love this music. Why can't I find the story? You have to just loosen the grip and get away from it, work on something else. And you know uh, either you have a line in your notebook that reminds you of one of those pieces, and you can connect it, or you just have to kind of live life a little bit, and then have a story that comes up in the future that might go well with that piece of music. So uh,
Yeah.
I try to show up and write something that's going to be intriguing to me to perform, over and over again. And so I like that kind of concept of like just world building, and not really showing up to a song until you're really hearing kind of the voices, you know, from where the music's kind of taking you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a very important point there. Um, Looking back on the band's career, okay, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the words 15 albums?
What's the first word?
What comes to your mind first when you hear those words 15 albums?
Yeah, some of them are good. um, It does kind of give me pause, and part of me is like, wow, we did 15 albums, and then five like live recordings or whatever, so like 8, 19, 20. I think this is our 21st recording. um
Okay.
Part of me is like really proud of that. I mean, and then part of me is like, well, is that all you've done?
It's
So
like, where did time go? How much did we get done?
it is. It's frustrating. It's like if all I could do is just sit and write all day and make projects, then that's what I would do. But it's like we self manage our band, and so your days are really filled with just office work. Um, you
Hmm.
know, I sat there for 6 hours this morning with a paper calendar,
Oh,
um,
jeez.
booking, putting, where I wanted the band to be in 2025. So it's weird. It's like, writing and creating is a very present, thing that you're doing. And then, but you have all these other timelines, again, getting back to like, I'm here and now. We have a show in New York this Friday, or I'm writing and recording something now, but I'm also got this calendar, and I'm like a year into the future, and it's
Yeah.
just so it can be a little mind numbing about your progress, and there's thinking about 15 albums, of 12 songs or whatever, is something I'm proud of, but I'm also frustrated because there's all these other things that I want to get to creatively, and it's just a matter of how much time's in the day and what's the priority.
Yeah, no, I definitely can understand that. I can understand that. Um, Times being how they are in the world right now, some would say that it's excellent fuel for singer-songwriters and bands as a whole. What's your take on that theory?
um, what was it? Garrison Keeler said, "If you're a writer, everything's material." So I guess that's the upside of you know uh, whatever's going on around you. I would prefer to not react to you know the world around me, um, from an adversarial perspective, but that might be part of it, and you just take each day as it comes, and see what strikes you. I'm not really a big fan of what's going on today with the election, and
Oh God, no, no one is.
well,
My
that's not true.
my my daughter's already like asking, "Can we move to Canada?"
Yeah, that's the danger. I mean, of course, it's a well-worn joke with a lot of people, right? But the it's easy to get numb and apathetic, and I think people that aren't celebrating today, I mean, probably have a lot of just kind of breathing and licking the wounds to do and all. But I'm not a real big protest songwriter, but I've addressed a few things in kind of my way with the album before this, The Hunting Ground, which is a 5-song EP, and um,
Hmm.
address things that way. But I try not to. I try not to. I try not to. I think just organically, I don't come at a project that way. Usually, it's I don't know. My brain just kind of works
Okay.
when it's in a different way. For me, like writing a song, there's so much that I can try to connect with. I don't want to eat up a lot of bandwidth, with the headlines. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that.
nobody, nobody reads a newspaper and goes, "That was awesome. I want to read that again." Like I don't. Rather, I'd rather the songs really stand the test of time, aside from um, what might or might not be going on around me. They kind of have their own life and world is kind of what excites me.
Well, that's a very good point. And, I'm not one that is really into the politics. I honestly feel that politics take years off of your life. Um, so I've been mainly just trying to stay away from that. I mean, I did vote, but it's just there are so many other things that are going on that need attention.
Yeah.
And the fact that this whole thing, I pretty much categorize it as a live action adult version of Degrassi. I it's like, why would I bother even listening to any of it? But you are right though. I mean, I think that the way that you're going about it is actually very smart. And I give you a lot of props for that, because I know that there are a lot of I know a few artists that will definitely like make songs about their frustration about what's recently happened.
As
Everyone
they
needs
should.
to I guess everyone needs to vent, and just as long as it doesn't wind up with anyone doing anything like that'll get them on the news, have at it.
Yeah.
um
And there's people that are really good at it,
mhm.
you know.
Oh, most definitely. There's always a right way and a wrong way to do something like that. So, I
It's
think if you're an artist and you go about expressing yourself and your frustration the right way, then you're not going to have any issues.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's really what it boils down to. Um as I had mentioned before, um I first knew about you guys from Curious George. Was it surreal? Was it as a surreal of a feeling as because Phil Collins pretty much did the same thing for Tarzan. He pretty much was the soundtrack. In this case, you guys pretty much were the soundtrack for that movie. Like, what was going through your mind when you guys got offered that opportunity?
Well, it was, and so the Curious George movie that came out in the theaters a couple years before was Jack Johnson did the soundtrack for that,
Hmm.
when they were doing the sequel, it was intended to just go to DVD, as they often do, the sequels and all that. So
That's not cool.
well, that's just kind of their model. It's like, oh, we've got a
Yeah.
successful thing now, and then the follow-ups we'll do on a smaller budget, and we'll kind of like just put it on
Yeah.
DVD. And so we got a call from one of the producers who said that they had been working on the Curious George 2 movie and had been using our song "Life Less Ordinary" as a kind of placeholder. When they're working on a
Hmm.
film, they'll put temporary music in there that has a similar, vibe to what they want
Hmm.
as they're creating, the thing, and then they'll go back and they'll, either go look for some other music or they'll write something, etc. And they kind of they, they they just kind of liked it, so they asked us if we could do an acoustic kind of version of it, and
Hmm.
would we be willing to like change a few lines in the verse and things like that, which I don't have a problem with. I mean, it's just a version, and it fits the cartoon better. So we agreed to that, and then they came back and said, well, we also were thinking about using "Let Your Troubles Roll By" in this one scene, and could you do the same thing? And we said yes. And then they came back and said, well, you guys, could you just like write the music for the whole thing? uh, we were like, well, yes, let's talk. Like, what do you have in mind here? And so we ended up writing four songs, new songs, and then a handful of others that didn't make the cut. And then and then they licensed Life Less Ordinary, and then Let Your Troubles Roll By, and then Heitor Pereira, who is a fantastic uh, music composer. He kind of did the score around it, kind of the more the
Hmm.
cinematic stuff going on, the percussion. So it was a fun collaboration. It was way more work than I was anticipating, and it's Universal Studios, and so they're in Burbank, and we get a call from one producer, and they're giving me notes, and then
Hmm.
we'll send them some demos, and then I'll get like comments from another producer, and then by the end of there was like 3 or 4 or 5 producers kind of all weighing in, and I was just like, man,
Oh
writing
wow.
writing kid music is really intense. It's like you have a lot of
It's like, oh, this for a monkey?
exactly. And the first songs I wrote, I was maybe bringing, and I appreciate this note. I mean, it's not all for nothing. But they were saying, this song sounds a little too self-aware, a little too cynical, a little too adult. You really need to write these songs as if you're like a 5-year-old, or at the very
Uh-huh.
least, really the 5-year-olds are going to be the ones watching this, and you got to speak to that. And so
Yeah.
it took me a little bit to kind of get into that frame of mind, because you drag your adult into it, and they're they're always censoring, or looking for some kind of ironic angle or whatever. You had to just kind of let all that go, and once you got into that kind of groove, that you know it became a little easier. But it was a lot of
Well, you know what? It definitely paid off. You guys, that soundtrack again, the way that I see it, and the way that I've always been, if I'm not skipping any track, that's how I know an album is good.
yeah,
When I can actually sit there and listen to every single one
right.
without skipping a beat. And well, the only way that I would skip anything is if I want to put it on repeat. But other than that, I mean, it was definitely a great soundtrack for that movie. And it was very fitting. I honestly felt that you guys were very fitting in the tone of the songs that were there. My daughter's favorite, I think, was On a Roll. That
Yeah,
was like her absolute favorite one. She would always wind up asking me, "Can you rewind it? Can you
it's like
rewind it?"
yeah, like the runaway train sequence where
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and it was fun. It was fun for us too, because we would Carter and Terry and I would sit there with the picture. They sent us kind of an advance of the
Oh,
card
the
of the
storyboard?
movie. Well, part of it was animated, but then it would like go to storyboard stills, like this is
Mhm.
what's going to happen. So it was all kind of a jumbled, work in progress, but it gave us
Mhm.
some kind of frame of reference, and said, okay, here's a scene where, Curious George is in a boxcar, and then the boxcar gets loose from the train, and then it's like going up and down the hills, and it's like this runaway train, and we want something here. And so Carter and Terry could sit there with their guitars, and we'd watch the picture and just start kind of riffing on what the energy of the scene should be, and they were really good at that. And then so then I could take that, and then fashion some kind of like um, alternative narrative, that isn't necessarily describing the scene, but it's kind of the energy of the scene in a song form. So it was a fun process.
Well, once again, it was absolutely amazing. And I actually have um after I got to know the songs from that movie, I pretty much again I went on a pretty much down a rabbit hole with your guys' music and everything. I wanted to learn about you guys. I wanted to see what other stuff that you came up with. I love The Boxer.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. And I've actually seen the video of you guys doing it live, I forget where exactly it was, but you play a mean flute. Like what kind of instrument is that again? Because I know it's not an actual flute. I mean, is that like a
No,
piccolo or something? I
not
don't know.
piccolo. It's a penny whistle,
Okay,
Irish penny whistle or tin whistle. Um,
okay,
so it's just a it's a it it's a pretty cheap instrument. They make them out of plastic or actual tin. So um,
nice.
I'm not really I'm not really good at it, but I can like make little parts and put them in a few songs. But I'm not by any stretch a real virtuoso.
Listen, if the sound is great, then you use it.
Yeah,
I used to play recorder, and the thing my mom always told me is she was like, "You have an ear. It's like you hear something and you could actually pick out how it sounds."
nice.
I actually I remember one year she got me the Practical Magic soundtrack, and I wound up figuring out on my recorder how to play the final song they do at the end. It must have taken me like maybe a half hour to figure
Wow.
out all the notes on there. And I can't do it obviously now. I'm absolutely horrible at it, but that I do remember. But yeah, the boxer, I feel that that really added to the song.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
It, it, it was that was I remember vividly when we were in the basement and when we came up with that. Carter started playing that riff, and had that taka ta taka ta taka ta, kind of rhythm to it, that 6/8 rhythm to it, um, and uh, and this was early on where we were really doing a lot of like it was one of the earlier songs that kind of was like this feels like it could be something with a little bit of a Celtic influence, and so the penny whistle was kind of an easy choice there, and it kind of became a character of the song, and then the idea of um, juxtaposing two people in a relationship that are sparring with a
Yeah.
boxer kind of just was like a no-brainer. It's like, well, yeah, so that's the boxer. Got a penny whistle. It's got fighting. It's like okay,
It's like you Russell Crowe.
it's in six
Let's
eight.
go.
Just like
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Um Now, off the newest album, Time is the Playground, which is there a particular piece that holds a special spot in your heart? And if so, why?
yeah. I mean, honestly, like every track does, and that was the point. Like I went through our demo library, like I said, and we have like 900 of these little pieces of music, and I went through and kind of revisited all my favorites and put them into like an 80 song playlist, and then I started whittling it down to eventually the 12 that I like really were really speaking to me with this project, and so they're all kind of so special in a lot of ways, but time is the playground. The lead track, the title track rather, is one that's very close to me, and it went through so many iterations. That's kind of partly why it's like it ended up being a very different song than what I started with, and I would revisit it over and over, and I only had like one part that I knew was great, and then
Oh wow.
everything else was garbage. And so it just took that much time to kind of get it. And I was just like, you know, what does this song need? And what it needed to get unstuck was just a different melody and on the verses. And once I got that foothold, everything else just kind of made sense. Um, I don't know. There's Monday Night in Germantown is another one that I really love. It kind of recalls the early days of the band, um, hitting the road really for the first time, and going to small towns and playing any kind of small club that would have us, whether it
Hmm.
was a music venue or whether it was a restaurant. And there's all these weird, funky, quirky kind of places with you know just their own kind of like beginning band vibe, and
Yeah.
um, and so that song kind of just is a kind of composite character of those days, where we would go to a place on a Monday night and play, from 10 to 2 a.m. and nobody's there to hear what
Wow.
you're, doing. So, there's a kind of camaraderie in that with the band, but there's also this loneliness, that you feel, and yet you're young and you're being creative and you're out there with your guys and you're doing it right, and it may
Hmm.
not anybody else in the world is like paying attention, but you're doing it. It's a start. So things like
Yeah.
that are what kind of make me have my favorites, I guess.
It kind of, what you just said right there kind of reminds me of this line that I heard in this independent movie called Pray for Rock and Roll. Um, Lori Petty, she's a guitarist in a band, and Gina Gershon is also in there. Apparently, the girls that were the band are actually, they all wound up learning how to play the actual instruments, and
Yeah.
so Lori Petty tells Gina Gershon, who's having kind of like a midlife crisis thing, she goes, "Who's this? We're gonna play as long as there's an audience, man. And if there's no audience, we're gonna play for the bartender." That
Been
right
plenty of
there, that right there, everything that you just said just reminded me of that. And you know what? The fact that you guys just kept it going,
yeah.
most people I know would probably get discouraged, and they'll start questioning why is it that they're doing this. It seems to me you guys never lost sight as to why it is you guys are doing what you're doing, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys are still going at it.
Thank you. Yeah. Why the word why is kind of like what an artist needs to ask like 100 times a day. Like why why am I doing this? Why am I making that decision? When you stop asking that, it's time to take a step back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we have come to the part of my show that I am resurrecting, called Would You Rather. This is kind of like a way to see like where your mind goes when you're asked certain questions regarding your own personal preference of things.
I'm terrible
Um,
at improv. I usually process things way too long for these kinds of things, but I'll give it a go.
oh, don't worry, I give you choices, so
Okay.
you pretty much will have a choice of what to pick.
Uh,
So okay, you have a chance to revive one of these artists from the dead to do a dream collab with. Would you rather resurrect Kurt Cobain, Lane Staley, Chris Cornell, or Amy Winehouse?
Kurt Cobain.
Why did I have a feeling you would go that way?
I was a big, I was a huge Nirvana fan, when they came out, and I remember that the second I heard them and saw the video, it was Christmas. I was in college, and I was back on Christmas break, and came back from some party and turned on the MTV, and there it was. And um, yeah, so I was certainly a big fan of that, of that. But that would be for sure the
I would
person.
love to hear a collab with you and Kurt Cobain. Actually, with any one of these individuals, I would love to hear a collab. Um, okay, you are approached to do a few songs for a TV series. Would you rather it be for Grey's Anatomy or Yellowstone?
Well, I haven't seen either.
Oh, wow.
Um, I saw like maybe 5 minutes of a Grey's Anatomy episode, and
Because
I just remember.
they actually tend to have some pretty good independent artists. A lot of what they do have though is independent artists that do covers of certain songs. Like
Right.
I've heard someone do Time After Time. I've heard someone do oh my goodness, what was that one? I forget which one. But
Yeah. Well, it was
yeah,
a way of keeping the budget under control, as if you cover the song probably, as opposed to license the original from the artist. But they did, I
yeah,
believe. I remember they had a lot of songs and acts kind of broke from that kind of style, where they did a lot of they did a lot of it's kind of like Miami Vice. They play a song and then there'd
yeah,
be this montage and it would be like a thing.
yeah.
So that would, and I haven't seen Yellowstone, so I can't really say, but um,
My daughter just stepped into the room.
okay. Hi.
Don't worry, would we get a chance to say hi to you on Friday?
Yes.
Okay, you're not getting away from this. She's nervous.
Uh,
She because when I told her that I was speaking with you, she was like, "No, no
uh,
way, no way, you're not." And so yeah, she's.
see you on Friday.
He says, "See you on Friday." Oh my god, she is so, for a close to 16-year-old, she tends to divert back to her 10-year-old self. But
Good.
you know what? She has an amazing taste in music also, and I'm inclined to say that I put her onto that, but a lot of it also goes to my family because we're pretty much very well rounded. Like I have everything on my phone library from Frank Sinatra and Etta James to Slipknot and
Yeah.
everything else in between. So,
Yeah. Good.
um, okay, this one is actually an interesting one that I thought of earlier today. Actually, um, you just decided to change careers and are now going into the world of acting. Would you rather go the route of Broadway or the route of Hollywood?
Yeah. I mean, Hollywood. Like I mean, I was a drama major in college, and I did a lot of theater, and I love it. And it would be cool if you were in New York and you kind of like you could be on Broadway. That'd be a kick. I've always liked kind of film and movies growing up. I liked that stuff more than I liked music. So I was always dreaming up those kinds of things and scenarios and stories, and making little VHS movies. And um, so I would probably say, yeah, Hollywood, if I didn't have to like live in LA.
I can understand that. I can understand that. Um, this is the last question of the day, and this is probably going to be a little bit more difficult. But
Okay.
if you know yourself with your music selection, you probably will know the answer to this one. You're stranded on a deserted island with just a record player and one record. What is that one record?
Oh, it would probably have to be my Beach Boys "Endless Summer" double LP. If I was on an island, that would be the one that I grew up listening to, all of their hits on vinyl is what I would probably bring with me.
Well,
It put me in a good mood. I was stranded.
what better band to listen to if you're stranded on an island than something like the Beach Boys?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's got sun, it's got surf. It's like, there you go.
Exactly, exactly. Now, Friday, I just know you guys are gonna kill it. You guys have played New York before?
Oh yeah.
Where else have you
Yeah.
played?
Oh man. I mean, well, we're playing Racket on Friday. We played there last year. It's really cool. We played the venue it used to be before they changed it to Racket, called I think the Fine Line. We played the Lion's Den, which we played. Uh, what was the big one? Well, we played the Bowery. We've played the Knitting Factory. We played what's the one on Houston Street? The
Irving Plaza?
Irving Plaza, but then Mercury Lounge maybe. I think the
Okay,
Mercury Lounge, Irving
okay,
Plaza, um, a few other some couple places in the basement. Uh,
okay.
yeah,
There's a spot actually called the Bowery Electric that is pretty cool. I mean, it's one block. It's across the street from the building that CBGB's used to be,
yeah,
and that building actually you go in there and it's pretty much like a place that pays homage to what used to be there,
yeah,
and they actually have there behind the cash register. They actually have on the wall guitars with signatures of individuals that had played at CBGB, and you could
right,
buy one of those. It'll cost you an arm and a leg, but
yeah,
you're able to buy it. But we look
yeah,
forward very much to seeing you guys on Friday.
yeah. Well, thank you. It'll be fun, and I'll have to see if I can drum up a Curious George song or something for your daughter. I don't know.
That would be awesome. She would lose her mind if that was
Well,
the case. She
no
would
promises.
lose her mind.
Right,
But yeah, no, definitely. We look forward very much to seeing you guys, and hopefully we can get a picture with you guys before the night is over.
great. Yeah,
Well,
sure thing.
I know you definitely have some other things that you got to do because you were mentioning to me before you got to go in the car.
I do. I do. I got to run an errand. So, well, thank you, Bianca.
Alrighty.
I appreciate
Of course.
the conversation.
Absolutely. I am gonna be posting this up on YouTube, so if anything, I will give you the link.
Yeah, great. That'd be great. We'll use it.
Alrighty. You take care, my dear, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Bianca. Bye bye.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Barry Privett from Carbon Leaf. Oh dear Lord. Such a great guy. Such a great guy. So, that for you is Live at the Hive, episode 1 on YouTube. That is, I already did one episode because I was on Instagram, but now that I have this, it is going to be even better. So, with that being said, hopefully I can add something on here for you guys, and I will be keeping you guys posted for any other interviews that I do live at the Hive, and we'll see what comes next. So, with that being said, good night. Mwah.